Hi, everybody. This is Barry once again with the Breck After School Music Program online. Today is going to be our last day for the spring semester of the after school program. So, I have some ideas and some thoughts I wanted to share with you about music as a parting gesture and to give you something to think about as you move forward in developing your musical life and your musical journey. So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is just that music is so much bigger than we sometimes realize. There's music everywhere. There's music in every single different other medium. So I wanted to list and talk about some of the different places where you'll find music or hear music other than I'll mention the traditional ones and then we'll continue from there, okay? So first of all, concerts, people playing music in front of other people. That's something that we're not able to do right now. So people are doing a lot of live streaming concerts, which is actually very cool because we have an opportunity to see a lot of artists that live in a different place than we are, even just video, even just before the pandemic. Just the idea that people would live stream or they would video their concerts. We can see a lot more live music than we used to be able to back in the day when the technology wasn't as ubiquitous. It wasn't as available to everyone. So it's very cool that we can do that now. And as the pandemic has hit, live streaming has been a way that musicians are able to still play in the moment to audiences, which is a very special thing and a very different thing than hearing a recording. All right. So concerts, live stream performances, public performances, and busking. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but when you see people down in the subway or in the park and they're playing music, sometimes we think of those people as destitute or homeless and having a difficult time and trying to sort of pull some money together, just some change. The reality is most of those people are actually working musicians or developing musicians who are going down into the subway or going into the park intentionally to do what's called busking, which musicians do all over the world, in order to A, meet other musicians, but B, most importantly, to develop their craft, to work on maybe the same few songs over and over and over again as the crowd moves by, trying them in different keys, trying them in different registers with their voice, trying them at different tempos, trying them at different volumes to see how much they want to project or not. Trying different things in order to engage people. It's a tough crowd, especially on the subway platform or on the subway train. So if you can get people involved and get people to feel you, that's a craft. That's a skill unto itself that people go to develop. So it's actually, and again, if you don't want to go in the subway, I understand. You can go in the park. You can just sit on your, in front of your building or in your house or in front, outside your, wherever you live and play. And I tell you what, you don't even have to be good. Somebody is going to be happy about it. You're going to make somebody's day, I guarantee you. All right, so now we've got also the idea of recordings. Now we all know about professional recordings. They're streamed. We used to have to buy them in a physical format. There were records and tapes and CDs, and you used to actually have to have the physical copy in order to listen to the music. So if you didn't own the physical copy of the music, the only way that you could hear it was if it just happened to come on the radio, or if you knew somebody and you went over to their place or you had them bring their music collection over to your place. So people were a lot more attached and connected with certain music that they were aware of and they were connected to, but now we have available to us so much more music that it's overwhelming, but it's also awesome because you can go and you can listen to any music you want right there on your phone, even on YouTube. Even if you don't have a streaming service, most stuff you can get for free. So that's professional recordings, sort of like the recordings that the labels put out, that the major artists put out. Okay, that's one thing. On the other hand, we also have amateur recordings because there are so many people out there these days who now have the technology available to them to record. I've spoken before about Les Paul. Les Paul, you may have heard of a Les Paul guitar. Les Paul was actually a person. He was a guitar player whom I actually had the opportunity to meet while he was alive and see him play. in addition to inventing or helping to invent the solid body electric guitar, like you see behind me, that's a Les Paul guitar, by the way, he also invented the idea to record one track and then listen back to that track while recording another track and adding them together. I think Frankie's talked to you a little bit about this. He also invented the idea of reverb, making an artificially creating a sound that made it sound as though something was in a bigger room than it was. So Les Paul did all this stuff in the 40s and the 50s. Now, it's been a little while since then. It's been a little more than half a century. And all of the stuff that he invented is now available to all of us on our phones. It's really easy. Like, you don't have to have a recording studio. We talk about that all the time. But what's the most amazing is that so many more capabilities than he even had, and than people even had in the 80s and 90s and stuff, are now available to us, where you used to have to spend $1 million and have a whole room full of stuff, or a couple rooms. Excuse me. Now, you can do everything in the palm of your hand. It's amazing. So, that's made the ability for so many people available to record and to make productions, make music of their own, recorded music of their own. And you can actually go and you can put that stuff, there are distribution companies that will help you get your stuff through the channels to put it on all of the major streaming services and even make it for sale. On the other hand, if you don't feel like you're at that level yet, or that's not what you're about, or you want to sort of more work as a free artist, and you also want to put your music out and have it in a format where if other people want to take a piece of music that you did and they want to add that to some piece that they're doing and mix the two up, that's very possible with SoundCloud. Now, that's not the only thing you can do with SoundCloud. So SoundCloud is just kind of, it's almost like a social media stream. You can just put stuff up. You just have a stream. And it's a great way to sort of grow in front of the world, to get stuff out there. There's a feeling that comes with when you get something done and say, okay, I'm going to share it with people. And I can't describe it, but I recommend you're looking into, like, if you're getting into making music and you're recording stuff and you're making tracks or you're singing or whatever, you can even use your voice recorder. You can put that stuff up on SoundCloud, and you never know. People might follow you. People might actually really like what you're doing. Okay, let's get into also other places where we hear music, where it's used to enhance the experience that we're having. So some of the obvious ones are movies and television and video games. So in movies and television and advertising as well, often there's some kind of narrative that's going on, and maybe something happens to a character or happens in the story, and there's an implication that may have certain impact on what's going to happen to the characters. But to make sure that we know what the intention of the director is in that moment, the music will reflect that emotion or that feeling. If it's an ominous moment, we'll usually hear something slightly scary or tense. If it's a triumphant moment, we'll sort of feel that the music will give us that sense of we've arrived somewhere. And music can be really powerful in enhancing those experiences. So movies, television shows, all advertising has some kind of music, whether it's jingles or whether it's the way that they use it in movies and TV, where it's just like a narrative and it's just a story, but there's usually still music. Video games. Often students come to me and they want to learn a particular song. And it'll seem to me that the song is kind of different from other music than they've shown me or the music they've told me that they like stylistically. And I'll say to them, where did you find this piece of music? Where did you hear this? Like, why did you want to learn this piece of music? And more often than not, they heard it in a video game. So that's fantastic to me as a music teacher, because I know that people are getting exposed to music that they otherwise wouldn't through video games. And it's kind of, they're not necessarily paying attention to it, but if they like it, it makes an impact on them. All right. So all of those things are great. Now, that's all just like sort of music in the way that we expect it, that we all experience all the time. But in addition, there are all kinds of events that are going on all the time throughout the world. Again, not many of them in person these days, but even sometimes the ones that aren't in person incorporate music. It could be a corporate event. It can be sorry, corporate events, sports events, political events, weddings. There's always a band at a wedding, and other gatherings, quinceañeras, bar mitzvahs, graduations, all of the different kinds of things. People like to have a band or a DJ. People like to dance. Hotels and restaurants often have live music in order to create an ambiance. Shows, there are show bands and bar bands that are going on, bands that you never heard of, that are playing. Again, there aren't many cruise ships anymore, but cruise ships, all of the major hospitality and like vacation places always have some kind of live music in order to enhance the experience. People love a little live music. All right, and it doesn't have to be live music, but I like to make live music, so I like to advocate for it. Okay, there are also other ways that people receive music, and that can be through internet and through broadcast. So first of all, there's terrestrial radio. Terrestrial radio is regular radio, the kind of radio that existed before the internet, before digital, before satellite, before any of those things, the kind of radio that they had back in the day that's just transmitted electronically and gets picked up by an antenna. That's still one of the best paying ways for musicians to have their music played. So if your music is played on the actual radio, it's worth more than if it's on streaming services or satellite radio or internet radio. Most stations have a satellite version and an internet version. So if you get on terrestrial radio, you're actually covering all of those. So that's something to look into. But there are also lots of places where people will amalgamate, or they'll put together music that they like in order to share it with other people. And those people are becoming tastemakers now. So we have music blogs, we have playlists, and then there's the bloggers put together playlists. We have also services like Pandora, where there are algorithms that will help you, that will sort of, based upon what you like to listen to, or Spotify, it will go and find other music that it thinks you will like, and you can tell it if you do or you don't. So that's also interesting. All of these places are where music is showing up. All right, so another part of the music world that I think a lot of people are not necessarily aware of. Again, in our culture, we see music as something that's done by stars, by professionals, that's done, like they sell millions of copies and they make lots of money and all that stuff. And that's sort of like what the image is we've built up in this country of what like a musician is, right? Well, the reality is for each of those people that's on the stage whose name if there's a live band, there's probably, 6 to 10 other people whose names, maybe even more, that you don't know. And I'll be honest with you, those are the real musicians. Not to say that the artists aren't valuable and important. The artists are the artists. The artists are doing the thing. However, in order to realize their vision, they need all of these technicians and all of these other artists and creators that can come together and put this sound together for them. And that's a whole craft that we're both on one hand losing, and on the other hand, people are getting better and better and better at playing because of the internet and Instagram and all that stuff. What I'd like to see is more people playing together, but I still think that a lot of the people that play music are people that we're not even aware of. And as I encourage people to get into music, I encourage them to learn everything they can about music, to really be a musician rather than thinking about being some kind of star. Because a star, that's a whole ego trip. That's a whole goal on another level. But like I've talked about, if you seek to be an artist, if you seek to be great at a craft and great at expressing yourself and true to what you really feel, it's going to resonate with people. And it doesn't matter if you're famous or not. It'll help you, probably make a living. But more importantly than that, it's going to connect with people. It's going to do the job that music is supposed to do. And it's going to be real. It's not going to be some version of what everybody else is doing that sort of just gets like chewed up and spat out in the commercial considerations. It's going to be your actual true expression. But I wanted to say that there are communities of all these people that have all these gigs. Everybody you see on the TV show bands, the late night bands, everybody you see in all the bands that are traveling around with the big artists and all that stuff. those people all get together. They're not always on tour. A lot of those people are not working most of the time. So in whatever city they live, there are bars and there are places where people gather and they just play music. And for each style of music, whether it be jazz or R&B and hip hop, bluegrass, blues, funk, and every style of rock, all right, each of those has a common ever expanding vocabulary that's that are known as standards. There are songs that most people that play this particular genre of music are familiar with and can at least follow along. And there's also a vocabulary, like a type of licks, a type of phrasing, a type of feel and rhythmic approach that's specific to each of these styles of music. And again, I encourage people who want to be really well-rounded and fully realized musicians to go and check out jam sessions of each of these types. You don't have to be an expert at every different kind of music, but to be aware of what expertise is in all these different kinds of music is going to raise the bar for you. It's going to let you know what it is that you can work on, how you can get better, and how you can get to be where you're alongside these people. All right, so that's all I really have to say. I wanted to leave you guys just with the thought that, again, music is bigger than you think. So I want for you, as you go into the summer and as you're preparing to get to whatever the next situation is, we're all very unsure right now, I want you to pay attention and see where you hear music. Try to make a note to yourself. Every time you hear music, where music isn't the primary thing, where it's not like, okay, I'm listening to the song right now, that's the, music is the art right now. But if you're watching a show, if you're playing a game, if you're out somewhere, if you're in the supermarket and you hear, music in the elevator, anywhere, I want you to just make a note of that. And I guarantee you'll start to become aware of a lot more music than you were before. I hope everybody stays well and safe and is fighting for truth and justice. And it was really a pleasure doing these videos for you and preparing each time for the lessons and thinking about what I thought was going to, really enhance people's experience as they're growing and learning music. I'm actually working on building another guitar right now, and if I can get it together, I'm going to try to do another video today where I play some stuff on the guitar for you. All right, so until then, or otherwise, again, take care, and we'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.